7 appearances so far in the playoffs. Been banned a couple of times as well. 6-1, a very high win rate that champion has had. We saw it come out to Imp for Deadly Effect yesterday. In the quarterfinals, Def doesn't really play a lot of Kalista, so it might come through the bans, or maybe they'll just try and answer it with the Urgot.
We'll have to see, but we've started our first draft here. IG on the blue side, EDG over on the red. Annie Thresh ban from IG, picking on Mako of all people there in EDG. They've done their homework, of course. Gragas banned away from Cacao, and Rookie is not getting Cassiopeia, as Koro will also receive a Maokai ban.
I mean, the Annie ban makes a lot of sense. Actually, in that EDG vs WE series, despite it being a 3-2, you'd think a lot of ban adaptation would come through, but no. 5 games WE banned Annie from Mako. 12-1 in the regular season. His most picked champion by far. Thresh actually up there as well, 5-1. It leaves him on the disengage, but removing a potential initiator from the bottom lane might actually be the big strategic adaptation coming here for IG.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of supports go to the supports light Nautilus, much more engaged, so taking some of those options away does make sense. Lulu, the last man from EDG, pretty interesting as well. Zatai's been great on Lulu, and Lulu in general has been a very popular first pick, so smart to take that away on the red side. But Zatai's going to flash us a Riven here. I don't know how serious he wants to take this pick away, but makes a bit more sense. I'll snap off Azir.
And you just see the power of Azir on this patch 5.6. Some small buffs come through that really make his laning that much better, his scaling better as well. His base attack speed, of course, was the big thing that's increased. And now they're blind picking their mid laner with first pick. Of course, with such a strong champion, it doesn't really have a lot of lane counters. It kind of negates the power of that 5th pick when it comes to last picking on the red side, just because now saving a counter pick for Pawn, it's kind of negated because you know already what the matchup's going to be.
Yeah, smart stuff though from EDG, responding with the Janna and the Nunu. We mentioned disengage already. That's probably the league's best disengage pair.
I mean, the power of disengage is so clear in the bans coming through. Gragas, Lulu, that's the disengage combo that IG was using whenever it was available. Both champions banned away. The Petrifying Gaze is something that Rookie used super well, just positioning next to Kid on the Cassiopeia for disengage on a champion like Kalista. That's been banned away as well. And now they snap up 2 of the best space control champions in the league. Janna, of course, the queen of disengage. Nunu just can activate that absolute zero and take up a lot of space in the front. Now there's only really Nami as a pure disengage support.
Yeah, and IG respond with their next few picks here. Rek'Sai, who is not banned away, interestingly, saw a lot of bans, especially against Cacao, but he'll get the champion for this game. And Kid, once again, is going straight back to Kalista.
I mean, the Kalista 5-7, I believe, is on the series, but 2-0 in the knockout stages. It's definitely been a must pick away by IG whenever they've had it available. We kind of expected that EDG wouldn't be picking it up just because Deft hasn't looked convincing on that champion. He's just fine, but he gravitates much more to the likes of Jinx, which is available in this situation. And EDG are going to have to pick pretty safe lanes, you'd have to think, because in the early game, Nunu versus Rek'Sai, you have to give the advantage to Rek'Sai in terms of early skirmishes.
Absolutely, but EDG, solo lanes already picked here and there on the red side. LeBlanc and Hecarim are what they wanted here, and they'll get them. Pawn, who often has that champion banned away from him, is going to take the Assassin there into the mid lane.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily fit the meta of 5.6, but Pawn is so good on this champion. And again, they need to buy time for the scaling to come through with the likes of the Nunu Blood Boil on an AD carry. We're expecting a hyper carry, honestly, with this last pick coming through, like the Jinx that they flash, maybe even the Kog'Maw. In terms of early laning phase, you're always going to give the early ganking advantage to Rek'Sai, so you want to pick safe lanes in general. Of course, Pawn will kind of combine offense with defense. You can use that distortion so aggressively, but also as a defensive option. Now they've got the Hecarim as well. No teleport smite has ever been picked by Zatai. He's never actually taken those summoner spells. Doesn't seem to play those champions. He defaults to the Gnar, 3-4 on the season, but his most picked, and Kalista Kennen. That's the completed bottom lane. So much flexible engage there. As EDG, they had their choice of hyper carries.
They did. I mean, they flashed Jinx earlier. Wouldn't be surprised to see it being taken away here, but Gnar Kennen's good stuff for IG. Again, lots of big space control. We talk about CC being at a premium here, and both teams have already picked up massive area of effect abilities. EDG, though, deciding on Deft's carry. I wonder what they want to take away. You said hyper carry. Likely the case here, given the setup they've got. I like the Hecarim against the Kalista as well, and EDG, after a couple of different considerations, take the logical one here and give Deft his Jinx.
In that series, EDG versus WE, Jinx was actually 3-0 as a pick, was picked away by Mystic. The 2 games that WE won was with Mystic on that Jinx. Deft has shown so much preference towards this champion. Honestly, the moment that Nunu was locked in, we should have expected the Jinx, because Clearlove and Deft running around the map with that Nunu Jinx combo has been a counter a counterpoint of basically the whole season coming through from EDG. So it's not a surprising lineup whatsoever. Engage, though, it's only really the Hecarim flank you'd have to think as an engage option, unless Nunu gets some amazing snowballs or flank absolute zeros coming through.
Yeah, I believe Loveling was the flank absolute zero lord earlier in the season, as we're going to go through our matchups now as well. Hecarim in the top lane, expecting to see quite a bit of this, but Koro looked devastating on the Hecarim.
The Hecarim is just so good at dealing with hyper carries. Kalista, one of those champions, doesn't have an innate escape, only has the martial poise for movement. Interested to see where this ends up, though. Will we see 2v2 and 1v1 action or the lane swap coming through? Because EDG, they've shown a penchant for lane swapping whenever they have this top lane smite Hecarim.
Yeah, I mean, IG probably happy either way here as we move through the rest of our lane. And Cannon support's really picked up, I have to say. Cannon versus Janna, always interesting to see you take such an aggressive all-in engage like Cannon against the strong disengage from Janna. But Cannon support, it's not just Zero that always wants to take it away. Kitties has it quite high on his list as well.
So whenever we were dissecting the pick of Cannon when it started coming back into the meta, it was actually LGD. It was not, of course, Flame, but Acorn that was playing a lot of that Cannon in the top lane. We would say, okay, but if they pick Janna, I mean, your Cannon initiation options are basically not. You just save that Monsoon and then just activate it the moment you see Lightning Rush coming in. The big difference, though, Pastry Time, is that although Cannon's a very good initiator, he's also very good at peeling for a hyper carry that you have to dive. So the defensive use of the Slicing Maelstrom is what we expect to be coming through from Kitties. Of course, when you see those cooldowns down, you do have those initiation options, but in general, Kalista, the Fate's Call will allow the reposition, so whatever he decides, initiation or defensive use, you'd have to think with the Janna being locked in, it's probably going to be primarily to peel for Kit.
I mean, just looking through IG's comp in general, we talked about maybe the lack of engage on EDG's side with just being Hecarim or maybe a LeBlanc skill shot, but IG arguably have even less engaged right now.
That's actually a very good point. Only coming through. Gnar as a solo frontline tank doesn't really work. You kind of need set up CC before the massive Gnar ultimate comes to fruition. Unless you're so far ahead that the enemy's face checking a Gnar. There's just not many options in terms of getting it engaged, and of course building Rage and then keeping it to get a pick is almost impossible, so usually needs a frontline diver. Cacao is on the Rek'Sai. We probably do expect Cinderholt Rek'Sai to come through. That was what Clearlove showed when he played Rek'Sai in the EDG versus WE series. But I mean, you're right, to some degree, both these teams are about objective control, because if they get the ward control and the enemy team looks to dive on them, especially with suboptimal dive options, it should be the team that gets the objective snowball going, gets the ward control, that really starts to take this game.
Yeah, and this might be the one jungle matchup where I don't straight away give it to Nunu as far as objective control goes. We've seen that Nunu does well in those situations, but Rek'Sai's no slouch, and with the Kalista aiding that neutral control potentially there as well for IG, both teams seem to have got what they wanted here in their first draft.
I mean, you have to say that EDG have got the lineup they're looking for. IG also have champions they've been very successful on. Rookies most played is this Azir, and it does provide excellent disengage to counter the fact that they gave up the Janna, and so many of their disengage options were taken away. The Gragas and Lulu, cornerstones of their comps, to Ty running that Lulu in the top lane. Of course, the jungle Gragas has really come to prominence just in the last couple of weeks. It wasn't with the advent of patch 5.6, despite the fact that there were those small buffs coming through to Gragas that patch. It was just in general, people realizing just the power of the explosive cast for disengage and his neutral control. The early dragons with Gragas, with his sustain and the 300 damage, cap to monsters, makes him really good in those two regards. It's all about the laning phase. I feel like if Pawn can actually pressure Rookie, force Cacao to monopolize time in the mid lane, and allow Clearlove and Deft to pick up levels and get to that point where EDG can start to rotate, EDG might take this game. And Hecarim is the big question mark, though. Will Hecarim get into that side lane? Because EDG, while we have a bit of time, I'll remind players of game 1 of EDG versus WE with a Urgot Nautilus lane or something along those lines. Urgot Thresh it might have been against a Kalista lane. They were happy to actually go into a lane swap. They opted into a lane swap with an Urgot lane, even though it was a very good laning matchup, just to allow Koro to get into a side lane as the Hecarim, exit lane, look for the smite, pick up the Gromp and other camps, and then come to lane, just set him up to move towards his 3-item core. The Cinderhulk into the Trinity Force, into the Home Guard boots, which is pretty much the cornerstone of the I need to kill Kid build here for Chorus. If you open up time for Hecarim to actually exit lane, get guaranteed farm, and then come to lane with a bit more items, that actually seems to be more important for EDG than actually winning a 2v2.
Yeah, we do have a pause, of course, to start the game, which is why we're not quite in there yet, but of course can see what the players have chosen for some of their early items and summoner spells at least as well. So I agree, I actually forgot about the second smite for EDG, so that tips the neutral argument even further into neutral once again as far as control of the objectives go. So level 1's going to be very important, as it almost always is, and these two teams, especially with the comps they've picked, feel like the first 10 minutes is going to decide not all of the game maybe, but a lot of how the rest of the game will be played out from that point.
I feel like my eyes in general are going to be trained upon the level 1. Who gets the matchup they're looking for? We have to expect, given how often EDG did it, they're looking for the lane swap with the Hecarim. But there's ways to deal with that swap, okay, Beishan? We were surprised to see it. Maybe, in general, World Elite didn't really know how to play around it. But of course, if he wants to exit lane, try to smite the Grump, smite the monsters, then just push his lane in and force him to react to that in the turret. Smite doesn't offer you as many options in lane before you actually pick up the Cinderhulk and can use that challenging smite.
Yeah, I mean, looking through the other things as well, I feel like there is just going to be a lot that's going on as far as level 1, like you said, go. Because see what Kakao does, he likes to get aggressive in the jungle to invade sometimes as well. I think important, maybe an understatement there. As I said, like the first 10 minutes of this game are going to be super important.
It's always the case, but I think it's right on the case right here. Just because we have those interesting champions that need lane swaps. We have IG that may be looking for the 1v1. Nah. Or he's going to have a favorable laning matchup against Hecarim. Now doesn't even have the Ignite to dissuade a turret dive or anything like that. IG looking for standard lanes. EDG looking to avoid them. All in the level 1, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they get to. It's about to get straight onto the rift for game 1. And welcome back for game 1 here between Invictus Gaming and Edward Gaming. We're here in the LPL Spring Playoff semi-finals as we begin our first game of this best of 5. Spent a while talking about the draft now that we've gone through the pause though, and Pawn versus Rookie, I mean, every matchup in this game might be a superstar matchup here, but we mentioned the lane swaps that might be happening. For me, the big thing, if that does all come through, is that we're probably going to isolate that mid lane, and Rookie's been one of the few players that's been super impressive, laning especially just in general, but in particular on his latest champion, Azir.
And LeBlanc has definitely been a cornerstone of a lot of the dominating performances coming through from Pawn. The big question mark is actually this LeBlanc versus Azir matchup. At the start of the season, we would have characterized it as a good laning matchup for LeBlanc because, again, Azir, so good at dealing with short-range champions. The only way to kill him is to gap close onto him aggressively and go for those burst trades because sustained damage. If he's just hitting you with those sand soldiers from range, not a lot of ways you can actually counter-harass him in those situations. But whenever you go in aggressively with Mimic, you're just bound to take aggressive trades with the Azir. It feels like this lane matchup, at least from what we've been seeing, has been going more and more over to the Azir player, which is worrying given that the power spike for LeBlanc, it's 5.6. The power spike's so much earlier. And
I think for me, that's reflected in the early items that these mid laners have chosen to go as well. Rookie has a Doran's Ring and Pawn has a Crystalline Flask. If anything to me, that says Pawn just kind of wants to farm out the first few minutes of the lane.
I mean, that's such a crazy thing to see in general. The Assassin champion taking the defensive item choice and the wave clear control mage actually taking the offensive choice. But that's where the meta's got to. And credit to Pawn for understanding the fact that that extra 15 AP is going to be negligible compared to all the regen.
And we do actually break out into standard lanes here. So you can see Deft and Kid trading fairly aggressively. Impressively Deft, able to trade nicely with the Rockets. Now hitting level 2. Going to maybe look for a zap, but doesn't quite get it. Kiddies will get poked away, but Deft always seems to do this in these lanes. He loves to fight people in the early levels.
Yeah, opting into fighting in a 2v2 situation against level 2 Spike coming through from IG, of course, was only trying to orb walk and get those max range rockets down. Didn't look to go for the true trade, but it equalizes the sustained damage. In the other situation, it probably would have been, 300-400 damage unanswered.
Yeah, and as we return to the mid lane as well, I guess maybe to open up your question about, it's crazy that we've got to this point. For me, LeBlanc's position or role has certainly changed. She still does good bursts. She's still, I think, an assassin's the best way to classify her, but she's almost moving towards being more of a late game, not control mage, but just a mobility secondary carry almost that just happens to do AP damage.
I think that's a fair assertion. Even when LeBlanc was first changed to a kit about a year ago, she was kind of not necessarily pigeonholed an assassin. She was kind of more opened up to being kind of a hybrid assassin because her poke is actually very impressive. And there's not many ways to deal with it, as Pawn's actually the one taking a lot of poke in these trades. But under a turret, you can go in there, the unanswerable trades with the Q into the Mimic and just get the damage and then back out. So it's a lot about the mobility, as you mentioned. Still primarily an assassin, still going to have much more impact in the early to mid game around picks rather than necessarily late game team fights. So you kind of need to get the value out of your LeBlanc before she naturally falls away in what has become the League of Tanks.
Yeah, and Kakao very sneaky here, going to try and do a very fast 4-minute dragon. We've seen a lot of 4-minute dragons. We saw Kakao actually recall quite early away from his jungle, but he's gone and done his red buff. Now on top of the dragon, snuck in with a tunnel, and at this point, EDG with no wards around, seems like they're not going to spot him off. In fact, Clearlove still level 2 on his Nunu right now.
I didn't actually watch Clearlove's pathing. Maybe he just gave up a couple of extra cans to Koro, which makes sense, of course. 2 smite champions. Kakao might die.
He might die. He has to smite it away. Does get it done and tunnels out, and Clearlove takes away the Sentinel, actually, and walks by the dragon, realizing, oh, you've already taken it away.
Clearlove will watch that VOD back and just shake his head at how aggressive that was from Kakao. Of course, had Flash, had the tunnel available, so could have got out defensively. But that's the kind of play you need in a semi-final where there's so many high stakes on the map. You want to actually get your team an advantage. They'll have the exact timer, but just objective snowball has proved so important through the course of the LPL and on these patches, and that's the first dragon to IG.
Yeah, Clearlove going to take away the Raptor camp though, so we'll get a bit away out of Kakao's jungle here as Zatai transforms into Mega Gnar on the top side of the map, and Koro farming healthily, actually a little bit behind here on the Hecarim, but I feel like at this point for Hecarim, not the best laner, but when he gets to the mid game, especially with some items, just turns into an absolute team fighting monster.
And all Koro wants to do is keep competitive in CS with Zatai. This naturally should be a good lane matchup for Gnar, but that's Clearlove.
Yeah, they're going in the bottom. Def with his heal kind of feels safe here. Shield does get in for Maker. They're going in for Kid as Def forced to run away. Actually, Clearlove might even go down here. A little bit low there. The heal is ready for Def, of course. IG will not get summoners, but they'll force 3 people out of the bottom lane.
Yeah, I mean, 3v2 turned around by IG. You kind of see the value of the cannon, always known as a very strong laner. And nothing changes. You can actually pick up the AP item, go for the harass-heavy build, and you have to respect the damage coming out from a cannon. And Janna only there for the late game, not really there for the laning phase. The 3v2 just couldn't actually deal with Kalista Cannon.
And I feel like Kalista Cannon in particular is maybe the new Kalista bottom lane we'll start talking about. Kalista applies so much pressure in the early stages of a lane, and so does Cannon. It's also nice that you can throw him in there for his ultimate and even disengage him if you need to. Cannon, it kind of took people a while to get to Cannon support, but I think once we got to that spot, people realized that, you know what, the best pairing here might just be Kalista.
I think it just makes a lot of sense. It's so flexible. We've said the same thing. We saw a lot of Kalista Annie, and we're like, okay, you can set up the Tibbers. Then we started seeing Kalista Janna, and we kind of shook our head because, of course, you think more about the aggressive Fates call using the defensive. Clearlove finds Kakao. They're actually equal in levels, but probably just going to do a little bit of damage.
Pawn's level 6 here, so Rookie has to be careful. Going to go in for the dive. Auto attack comes in after the ignite, and Pawn going to get a solo kill in the mid lane.
Solo kill by Pawn. These 2 Korean laners duke it out early. Must have been a misjudgment of experience from Rookie on his very, very practiced Azir. Pawn steps into the lineup. We don't know about his health status. He's obviously not feeling that great, given that he was originally predicted to be out of the lineup for 2 months. And that's a big momentum swing early.
Yeah, it really is. Is Kakao going to collapse some tunnels as well and try and take away some of Kakao's jungle? A bit behind right now in experience, especially with Kakao taxing the lane while Rookie's absent after the solo kill. But the double Doran's there for Pawn, now going back with a Fiendish Codex. Rookie going to have to be a bit more careful now.
I mean, that's the only way to put it. Always expected to be on the defensive in this lane. Of course, getting those great sustain trades in, we saw early, forced Pawn out of lane. That's when he went back to buy that second Doran's, or the 2 Doran's actually, because it got started with the Flask. Came back into lane, just took a trade he didn't need to, didn't respect the experience advantage that Pawn had managed to accrue, and now just has to be a little bit more passive, and maybe that will open up Clearlove to get a bit more jungle pressure down, because you'd think that LeBlanc, after getting a solo kill, will have the run of this mid lane.
Man, while we're on builds, actually, Koro in the top lane going back actually has Home Guard boots already completed there. So very aggressive as far as the build choice goes. Obviously looking for a very skirmish or team-based style with that build coming through so aggressively.
I mean, the only reason to spend what is it, 1450 gold on your boots or somewhere around that point. This early in the game is about that first use of the teleport. He wants to get a huge teleport trade. And speaking of trades...
Yeah, great chain there from Pawn coming through. Rookie again going to be locked down. Pawn with the blue buff. Going to force Rookie out of lane again here in Azir. We talked about the matchup. Seems like LeBlanc right now has tipped it straight back in her favor.
It's just really curious that Rookie is opting into these poor trades. Rookie had LeBlanc banned against him 3 out of 4 games in the quarterfinal against Vici. Didn't play it when it was available, but a very practiced LeBlanc player just taking unsustainable trades from Pawn.
Yeah, down in the bottom side, Kid trying to zone Deft out of farm here as well, but Jinx with the long range with Janna to help her. Not too tricky here, and Deft staying very competitive in CS, but playing a little bit more passively than maybe we're used to seeing from him.
Koro's looking aggressive.
Yeah, going to go in for a dive there. Rookie going to get ulted back. Pawn will dive in and pick up another kill, and Koro comes in for a wonderful assist.
And didn't even need the home guard boots for that particular gank. Of course, Ninja Tabi going to help against all the auto attack harass from Nah, but he's navigating lane with just a 10 CS disadvantage and making his presence felt around the map. And speaking of presence felt, they've pinged out the jungler here. They're coming for Cacao.
Yeah, Pawn rotating down. I think Koro has gone back, so we'll run back in towards the top lane there as well. Pawn will give it up. His walk past toward will sweep one out on his way back to the mid lane, though. And we talked about Pawn coming back in the lineup in a sense, given that he was sick to start the quarterfinals here for EDG's playoff run. Being 2-0 up on LeBlanc has to be great for your first game momentum.
It just helps you extend the period where you're actually able to have kill pressure onto Rookie. Now his item timings are delayed. Now you're going to continue to have a level advantage. Level 8 to level 6 at this present point, or the level 7 will just be pinged by Rookie. Whenever you have kill pressure in the mid, it forces Azir to be so defensive. And Rookie just needs to cede all lane advantage. And again, the big winner from that is Clearlove and EDG's rotations.
Yeah, you can see Clearlove maybe moving in towards the top side. Deft to Mako will take away the Gromp though. So Deft keeping up in CS here. Does have his pickaxe to BF sword right now. So can't really enter into any trades, especially with the passive support in Janna. But as long as he's staying even in CS, Deft's going to be happy.
Deft just needs to get to the point where he has 2-3 items on Jinx and keeps up with Kid. If he falls behind in a massive fashion, it will be a big issue for EDG, as he's the only sustained damage dealer on the team. Hecarim does do decent sustained damage, but mostly is about that burst through the use of things like the Home Guards and the Trinity Force proc on the Devastating Charge and LeBlanc, all about burst trades. But again, 2 burst champions in a Jinx just means the burst comes down, get that first reset on the Get Excited, and then Jinx will wreck through the enemy team. So item timings just need to be on par with the Callista, and they just need to avoid that 2-item power spike and not look to trade if you're EDG.
And it's good, at least for EDG, that the LeBlanc's doing well then, because of course you will add to that burst damage that gets the resets that you described here. Dragon is back alive now though. Of course, Cacao basically stealing away the first one means that EDG might look to contest for the second, but clearing out the wards. Kitty's with level 6 moving around as well. Cacao might just start it again, and once again, EDG no wards right now.
I mean, awkwardly, Pawn, for all his great laning, hasn't shopped. He actually has less effective items than the Azir does. He's sitting on 1,700 gold. Cacao's going to start this dragon. Looks like he's been spotted out, though. Definitely has now by Mako.
Yeah, I mean, the Scuttlecrab can't quite see that deep into the pit, so it only gives you vision of the river, but that may be too much. Cacao actually going to get forced out, so good presence there by Mako, with Nunu actually back towards the top of mid lane there, but even LeBlanc wants to shop but hasn't had a chance yet. Nige might just re-engage for the dragon.
I mean, EDG could go straight to it, but it's not smart of them with the fact that they haven't spent this gold. I feel like Paul needs to spend his gold to actually start getting these trades. Koro spent so much time out of lane that he loses his turret and top, so that's already an objective over to IG.
Yeah, I mean, nice roam from Koro, but the first tower will go to IG as a result, so now getting stronger, and we've seen this build a couple of times. Zatai, Frozen Mallet is his first choice.
Frozen Mallet finished very quick, 1,200 gold. It is still a very expensive purchase. It does a lot of things against a Hecarim. I mean, even just simply auto-attacking a Hecarim with a regular slow removes his passive damage. It lowers the damage from his passive because, of course, it's related to his overall bonus movement speed. And it just keeps him accountable in a lane. You can't use Devastating Charge to escape.
Duckler's going to get caught, though. Knockup there coming through for Rek'Sai. Cacao will get chunked down slightly by the Zap, but picks up the kill. Clearlove, too aggressive, checking for wards.
And that's another thing that Kennen provides. Even without the slicing, Maelstrom does have auto-attack related CC. So they pick up Clearlove. They move on to this dragon. Should be a very safe second dragon. And Koro still not interested in entering lane.
Rookie now 2 levels down. Pawn going to jump on top of him. Will get caught in rotation. Does get bounced back, but Pawn trying to find his way over. Will flash in there, but it's out of dives as Koro comes in and just swipes away the kill.
And that was even better than finding a wild wolf camp. Takes the kill as well. Kakao does pick up the dragon.
Yeah, might go down as a result. Pawn, they're getting caught out. Kitties will actually get the stun as the Thai picks up the kill. Dragon goes over to Rek'Sai, and Kakao somehow, with a blinking red health bar, gets away.
So low, but he does pick up the dragon. That's the important factor. Both these teams really looking to pick up the 5 dragons to open up a new win condition, given that they don't have the best engage. But that's the result. IG take the dragon.
Yeah, so good stuff from Kakao. Very aggressive taking of that objectives means IG are in a nice spot as far as snowball on the objective goes. Actually has a gold lead as well due to mainly Zatai taking the tower in the top side. So things were equalizing a little bit here as Zatai and Koro going to fight, but I don't think Koro is stronger here. Zatai nars him into a wall. Koro will get away safely, but message received there for the Hecarim is still trying to finish that first major item.
That's the unique thing about Frozen Mallet is that just with auto attack trades, Koro has no way out. The devastating charge is going to be completely negated by the auto attacks and the consistent slow coming through from the Frozen Mallet. Then, of course, reapplies in the slow from the Q in general, the boomerang toss. Just not much that Koro can do to exit lane except force that onslaught of shadows. And if he's able to consistently blow that team fight cooldown, that's really key to the teleport home guard ganks that Hecarim's going, then he's doing his job as Gnar, even if the item build path doesn't give him the magic resistant armor that are ideal stats for team fight.
Yeah, and when we talk about Frozen Mallet being ineffective, it's the expense and the fact that it doesn't give you that many tank stats compared to items of a similar price. But right now, Zatai looking just fine as far as that timing goes, and especially if this extends for a couple more minutes and Zatai's anchored to the top lane between spawns of the dragon, like I guess right now, perfect stuff for Zatai, because he's going to get tanky around the 20-25 minute mark, and next dragon will be up and he'll be good to go.
Well, it's a long laning item. If you're going to keep laning, if you're not looking to early group, if your team comp doesn't need that, or your win conditions aren't centered around early grouping, Frozen Mallet is a wonderful one-item power spike for Zatai. Gives him a bit of AD, gives him a lot of health. Of course, it's not quite the 2,500 gold, 800 health investment that is Warmog. It's much more expensive than an item, but it just forces Koro to be that much more accountable in lane, and Kakao's there as well.
Yeah, Kakao's in now as well, and Koro forced to ulti out, does get in there as Clearlove going to come in towards the top side. We'll throw some snowballs there, even using the smite just to clear away some of the creeps. Might look to keep chasing, but no ultimate here from Kakao. Yeah, there's the wallop coming through as well. Pawn was looking, like you mentioned, for a kill, but does get spotted by the Tremor Sense. Will get watered as well, and Rookie a little bit late to move in, but Pawn already has to back off.
Yeah, Pawn was going to be the first person to rotate. Probably, of course, has plenty of burst damage at this point. Even skipped finishing the Athene's Unholy Grove for a bit more burst in the Needs Large Rod purchase, but they noticed that Kennen was so much faster to rotate from bottom than Deft and Mako, who was still around the dragon area, so they had to disengage from that trade.
Yeah, you can see Rookie farming up nicely here. Still quite behind Pawn on CS, actually, so LeBlanc's done a good job to keep this lane in check. Still 2 levels ahead as well at last check as well. As Kakao going to catch Koro now in his own jungle. So Ty will pop in as well with the slows, but Koro able to run away there. But at this point of the game, IG have completely taken over the top side of the map.
It looks like Clearlove not even interested in jungling in that area, spending his time towards the bottom side. They don't have any aggressive vision, though, to EDG in either of the halves of the IG jungle, so there's only safe place for Clearlove is that bottom side jungle, and now just the bottom lane. Yeah,
and you can see Rek'Sai actually used their ulti to get down to the other side, possibly thinking of Clearlove pressure as he does sit in the brush right here. Mako going to come in and get aggressive. We see Rek'Sai down towards the mid lane there on the minimap, so Clearlove going to sneak in. They will know there are no wards there. Now maybe just going to look for the tower. Could think about a dive, but Kid and Kitty's already looking to get off, but EDG get what they want, taking the bottom outer turret.
It's really good pathing from Clearlove. He can't actually show himself in the red side jungle for EDG because we already noted the fact that both members of Kitty's though.
Kitty's going in though. Clearlove going to use his ulti to disengage. Good Fate's Call though will keep him safe, but Koro's trying to get in there now as well. Does activate the devastating charge. Will look for an ultimate maybe onto Kid. Going to try and line it up, but doesn't pull the trigger. Pawn though almost catches Rookie in transition. And EDG get no kills, but they're going to continue applying pressure.
Awkwardly, Koro did not actually have the onslaught of shadows available. Just came up a couple of seconds after he backed out. This gives plenty of free time for Ty to keep pushing in. There's no objectives to fight over. But even with all the defensive wards he has down, doesn't feel comfortable continuing the push.
No, weirdly enough, but Koro with the home guard boots does get back to farm the waves back out here as well. Rookie also taking his noted free time now as well. Going to go recall and spend some of his gold. As we see Athene's done for Pawn. He already picked up an early need to see large rod as a snowball item, and now it's 18 minutes. Very strong at this stage of the game.
And just massively ahead of his lane opponent. 1,500 gold or so is the lead over Rookie. Basically, the needlessly large rod ahead at this point. Always going to have the assassination options as a LeBlanc compared to Azir. They haven't managed to translate this lane pressure into aggressive wards, though. The double pink doing so much defensive work for IG, and they just can't answer the pressure that IG have on their red side to EDG getting their own sort of pressure in the enemy team's red side.
Yeah, and that's certainly translated to the 2 dragons up that IG are right now, but Dragon is back up in 40 seconds. Deft, Zeal, Infinity Edge, his items picked up already, and Kid going for a quick Bloodthirster. So both AD carries team fight ready. Pawn there ready to go as well with the extra snowball gold that he's picked up. And even Hecarim with the ultimate backup home guard already done quite a while ago. And now the Skirmisher Saber and the Cinderhawk completed, and a Phage for Koro. EDG couldn't contest for the first 2 dragons, but they've got a very good chance at the next one coming up.
I mean, you say that, Page Time, but there's no teleport available on Koro after that failed gank down bottom lane. Cacao had so many. It's going on to Clear. Probably not going to get anything there, but it's had so many tunnels down, and Clearlove's had so few places that he could actually go to potentially step on them, that there's double globals effectively here for Cacao between Rek'Sai and Zatai's teleport, and Koro and EDG have none.
And it makes sense with how defensively they're playing. They can't really wait out for Koro's teleport. They'll have to rotate down if he wants to get down there and help his team. But potentially under threat of Zatai now as well. I mean, Deft starting to aggressively clear waves in rocket form. Infinity Edge helping out there, taking out the Scuttle Crab there as well. And Pawn is always threatening Rookie whenever he tries to leave lane to help them for the Dragon. I don't think EDG want to force a fight right now until they can somehow move Koro down, but they might be forced to here as IG are already back getting vision around the Dragon.
I mean, EDG's strength at this point is firmly on the back of Pawn, but the only way he's going to get an assassination kill is if they can get some exclusive vision, whether it's pink wards or just clearing out all the IG wards and looking for a face check. But when they've got teleport advantage, IG just have no reason to start face checking bushes where they don't have vision. They know that EDG isn't going to start this Dragon because of the strategic hole they're in, so it negates a lot of the powers. This is the power of Frozen Mallet.
Yeah, that's going to force Koro to ultimate out there as well. And Zatai continuing to push away in the top side of the map. We mentioned it. He looks a lot better on carry-style champions. And nah, certainly a big tank, mostly there for utility, but with the Frozen Mallet can bully around a bit more. And look at IG. They've gone on top of the Dragon, but the teleport's going to come through. EDG, I don't think they can fight here 4v5. The ulti goes in, and Deft, he actually steals it.
Deft steals it from downtown. Can't really say calculated on that one, but that was the result, and it's so important for EDG to pick up that first Dragon. The 6% stats will do so much work when they haven't really been in a shout of the first 3.
They're dropping in those Zatai, gonna look for a fight, does not make go back, and that's an insta-kill almost for Zatai, who picks it up with one more auto attack. Thankfully, EDG back away towards their turret, and Deft looking very solemn. His support friend has died.
Well, I mean, Mako had all summoners and the Monsoon available, just stood in the wrong spot after they stole away an objective and donated back a kill to IG. Kill for a Dragon, especially a Dragon that EDG had no argument getting into, is still a bonus for EDG, though, in this situation, because the game's been run so far. It's been played to the tune of IG's drum.
Yeah, it's almost a two-sided swing there with the Dragon as well. It's not just that EDG get there first, buff up the stats for the big AD carry and mid laner that have had very strong early games so far. As EDG see the way the blue buff, it's IG not getting to their 3rd Dragon. It's almost like losing 2 Dragons in a sense, because you get yours denied and your opponent gets one as well. I
mean, you just have to look at how this game's gone. Everything IG has done has been set up. Koro having to use his teleport down bottom to get a pick because they've been getting out-rotated and out-traded. Speaking of rotations, EDG take this 2nd turret to equalize turrets, but everything is the result of something that's happened this game. IG have done so much work to set up that teleport advantage, to set up what should have been an uncontestable Dragon for EDG, and they don't pick it up, so they lose a lot of their momentum this game, and EDG, both mentally and in terms of map vision, starting to push forward.
And they're really starting to turn on the rotations now as well. We've got the Zeal IE for Def. Mako's actually got the Captain Chant already finished there as well for Donna. His first major item effectively after going in. We're moving Kid and Kitties to the top side though for IG, defending off that turret, but we saw with the mid turret that went down quickly after the bottom one as well. If EDG gets some free time on these structures, they do not last long.
But still, I mean, EDG is doing the very predictable move, taking bottom turret, then rotating their AD carry to mid, now rotating your AD carry to top lane. Those are predictable movements, and IG have had good vision around those areas. So use that predictability to pick up turrets of your own, make assertive plays of your own. But so far, they've been surprisingly defensive, and that's all on the back of Azir having little to no lane presence in mid.
Yeah, Pawn just far too threatening. He's actually picked up his death cap already here as well, so very strong at the 23-minute mark is Pawn. We've seen it. Rookie's tried to leave lane, and Pawn's punished him most of the times he's looked to leave there as well. And still that CS difference continuing to mount here for Pawn. He's 30 CS still at 23 minutes.
Rookie's only really useful for his defensive utility for the Emperor's Divide and just playing defensively. He can't look to make those aggressive plays. Rookie was the trademark Zhonya's early player, diving in and using the Emperor's Divide for initiation, but not an option. And Nunu Jinx, this is the power they have. Leave them together and under a turret, and that's the result.
Yeah, Janna there as well for a bit of safety, and this is such a strong trio for EDG. We talk about disengage being important. EDG certainly have siege potential that IG don't, I think I have to say there, with the Nunu, Jinx, Janna, and they can just roam around, do all they want, and most importantly, give space for Pawn and Koro to either farm or rotate around and get kills of their own.
IG's siege in general is pretty poor. That's why you saw Zatai going towards the Frozen Mallet. He wanted to extend the laning phase, because in a siege situation, they have good good CSing options coming through from Azir in terms of wave pushing. He's pretty good at pushing waves himself, but Kalista, no Hurricane completed, actually just went back and completed. Still has to get in fairly short range to wave clear. Only really Azir for wave clear and defensive options. So they're more looking to open up an objective. That's where they're happiest, fighting around objectives. Again, that's why it's so important that EDG got that opportunistic steal from Death.
You can see as well, Baron now back up as you see lots of wards there coming through, but weirdly enough, that ward does not see that ward in the brush. We've seen a couple of weird wards over the playoffs.
Seen a couple of troll wards. There's just some spots that, yeah, the vision that comes through and the pink's not even be able to spot them are questionable, but hopefully no game-changing consequences from that.
We'll have to see, though. IG now on the offensive as far as pushing goes. Going to take out the mid turret for themselves, and the pressure down bottom might cost them a few kills, though. Rest of IG are going to look to rotate. Kakao and Zatai have to run away. No port just yet. Actually, Koro's already used it, looking for initiation. Goes on to Kakao, who'll get in range for a slow there. The reveal from the skirmishes as well. Koro gets the first kill, but a kill for a turret. I think IG will take it.
I mean, there's another dragon in a minute 30, so EDG should get exclusive time to prep for what will be their second dragon, but I agree. Overall, you give the trade advantage to IG. Just ruminating on what you were saying a couple of seconds earlier, both these teams actually have really good turret damage, but don't have much wave clear. LeBlanc, for all her power, she can get into melee range to wave clear, but it's often too risky. Deft has pretty good wave clear, but again, is mostly crit reliant, hasn't gone the static shiv to really accentuate the wave clear. It's certainly not Sivir is Jinx when it comes to the wave clear, and it's only really Azir setting up his Sand Soldiers for wave clear of their own. So both these teams so much more comfortable sieging turrets rather than necessarily trying to clear waves. Says to me that the power of wards and rotations will be even more important this game, and so far they've gone to EDG.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that in the last few minutes with EDG getting ahead, but IG now equalizing in turrets as well, so map significantly more open than it was maybe 10 minutes ago, and all that laning that IG were building up to, Zatai especially, that's all fallen away. So we look down the items, very strong stuff for EDG if they look to fight in the next few seconds, but Deft and Clearlove both in the top side of the map. I think they're looking for the EDG Baron.
Considering their options, 21-minute Barons have been decided multiple times. 24 minutes seems like basically EDG a clock when it comes to win a team fight, instantly go to Baron rather than picking up a second or third dragon. Sneaking it away, though, I don't think that's going to be a possibility, especially with how far pushed Zatai has been consistently this game.
Yeah, continuing to apply pressure in the top side as well, but Clearlove will find him there. Zatai going to slow him down, and Clearlove throws out his ulti for a bit of a slow. Def going to come, but Zatai, he's going to go in 1v2 here. Def has to be careful, gets nailed by a Tromper as Mate goes in as well. Amazing reflexive flash by Def, keeps him safe. Zatai will go down, but that's just IG's dragon.
Def's use of summoners is beautiful to see, but it's being punished, as you mentioned, for the all-important third dragon. And there's, of course, the Super Mega Death Rocket. Not going to happen twice. Shame on you, IG, if that did come through. Big thing to say is we talked about the power of rotation. It's going to be so much easier with the 5% bonus movement speed coming to IG.
Yeah, that's a weird trade there for EDG, committing so much to kill the very tanky now, who honestly, if without the flash, would have got a 1v2 kill there onto Deft and set EDG far behind in the exchange. As a result, it's kind of neutral. 1,000 gold up for EDG is not massive, given that IG have a dragon lead here. We've seen EDG like to, pick on lanes from time to time. Clearlove especially likes to really hammer a laner down once they've started ganking it, but that might have been an overreach in the top lane.
I guess it's hard to say whether it's a strategic decision, whether it was we'll give up the dragon to kind of push Zatai back, ensure that he isn't positioned so aggressively and overextended, and actually start to get that Baron vision for the sneaky Baron you're speaking of, or whether it's just a mistake.
Rookie in trouble there, goes down to Deft, actually gets bopped back in there by Hecarim. I think he was threatening. Now Kiddy's getting poked down, but Pawn forced to get away as he's taken too much damage from Kid. A big trade that gets Rookie and EDG. We'll see if they can pressure.
We bigged up Rookie during the pre-game, but really struggling in this game, being consistently caught out by LeBlanc. Probably going to see some LeBlanc bans coming through, given just the respect that Rookie's LeBlanc has managed to command, and just the respect that Pawn's, it should have been there, but wasn't given by IG.
Yeah, EDG sitting in vision as they look for a brush camp there as well, but we'll clear some of it out. Still got one just to their left there, but no Baron quite yet as Rookie's back in a couple of seconds here. IG playing quite defensively in the last few minutes, has to favor EDG, who have started building some momentum. And I have to agree with you with the mid lane matchup. Pawn got his choice of counter picks here. Very confident first pickers here from IG, and we'll have to reconsider where they pick that champion maybe.
And look, remember, they lost that first game to Vici. It was a fairly uneventful game. Then a couple of mistakes from IG lost them the game instantly. First picking a mid laner is something that is almost unprecedented in the league. Azir is starting to command that sort of respect. We've seen a lot of Azir bans and early Azir picks. But against one of the best mid laners in the world like Pawn, who's easily in the top 10, you just can't do that when there's champions like LeBlanc available. You have to respect the counter picks. We thought he'd actually be able to navigate lane. Remember, he started with the defensive laning options. He took the sustain heavy start. But he's certainly been able to punish Rookie time and time again. Koro, Pawn, sometimes even Clearlove have all been training on keeping down Rookie.
Yeah, pretty consistently 25 to 30 CS ahead there in the lane. 2-1-2 hasn't had a kill in a short while, but massive items done already here at 30 minutes as he goes for a second need to see large rod after the Athenes and the Death Cap, probably looking for that Zonies to come through. Locket now completed for Clearlove. Also going to give him a nice item timing as we move into the next section of our game. And Kid's also done with his 3 items, but Deft on the way as well. Pickaxe and a Vamp Scepter actually sort of splitting the difference on early components.
And the big question will be which of these 3 item AD carries will do enough work in the next fight. We usually talk about the fact that Kid, strongest on Kalista with the Bloodthirster Hurricane, never got a team fight with that particular power spike. And you add 5,000 gold, you don't get the same impact as fighting just with the freshly shopped Bloodthirster and Hurricane. So they've navigated away and just rotated around fighting at a 2-item power spike for Kalista. Jinx perilously close to her own 2-item power spike. In fact, we'll be going back to pick up the Last Whisper very, very soon. Avoiding that power spike and then opting into fight might actually be a big point of benefit for EDG.
And smart stuff strategically, because that next dragon's going to be up in a couple of minutes, and Baron, of course, can force pressure here as well. EDG have been wonderful all season long, and even in the playoffs in their victories, at commanding respect and control around objectives. And, you know, they gave away a couple of early dragons to IG. Def managed to steal one away there as well, but right now seeming complete control of the map. Last 10-15 minutes, IG have been a little too far back on their third of the map.
But crazily to me is that they've ceded control of the map in a lot of ways. IG had it. We mentioned that Clearlove could only walk into his blue side jungle, had no vision on the enemy jungle to potentially try and pick up some camps there, could only go bottom, but bottom netted them their first turret of the game. So with the few options they had, they got the most out of it, did EDG. And now suddenly they've catapulted Def to 3-item AD carry on Jinx. They've got the Trinity Force, Cinderhulk, and the Home Guard builds completed on Koro, who now has his teleport. A massive burst coming through from their Fed Assassin and their top laner into a pick and getting Deft excited. He has the damage to mow down a team himself.
He does, and Zatai now in the bottom side, continuing to split push. Hasn't really left that lane in quite a while. Doing good AoE clear in the Mega Gnar form, and will push decently in Mini Gnar. That does draw EDG down, but Koro with the Home Guard boots and the devastating charge Z, able to come in to defend quite quickly here. And I think at this point for Zatai, his lane was started great. The Frozen Mount looked excellent in that early stages as well. But right now, maybe just needs to group with his team and force some team fights, because IG, again, just too much ground they've given up in the last 5 to 10 minutes.
And I like the fact that you mentioned right now, because it's 50 seconds to Dragon. This is the time when he needs to start prepping for that objective. It's a bigger objective at this point for IG than EDG, but on the same side of the coin, EDG can't give up the next dragon and give IG the potential win condition, the consistent win condition of the potential 5th dragon. The minute before is when you prep the wards. Hell, if it was Samsung White, it'd be the minute and a half before the dragon spawns. At the present point, EDG have all the vision around Baron, and they're looking for a trade, but the teleport's already being channeled.
IG instantly poured over, and they'll pull off, maybe go for Zatai here. Def a little bit too close as Koro's still tanking Baron. Will pull off it. Clearlove Pretty tanky. So is the Hecarim if they do want to start a fight here. Attempted bait, you have to think, by EDG, but falls a little short there.
Well, a lot of respect coming through, and I think deserved teleport going from Zatai. The Dragon killing damage from mostly Jinx with the Nunu Blood Boil is massive, and Nunu has excellent Baron secure, so you needed to actually channel that teleport and force EDG off the objective.
Zatai still on that turret though. EDG going to have to swing back around. I think hoping Zatai would pull away, but EDG now caught on the wrong side of their lane. Even a turret being set up by Rookie's going to make this rather awkward. Pawn forced to walk all the way back around with the rest of his team just to poke them off it. EDG will get back in a position and clear the creeps out though, but very smart rotation from IG. Almost gets them a turret and might get them this dragon.
It's just really savvy play from Zatai, remembering what did we say during Champion Select? Initiation options from EDG almost completely absent. They're looking to trade though, and IG might have to do it.
An interesting trade here. IG will get that dragon, but Kakao does use the smite. That's going to mean EDG are going to secure the Baron. We know that EDG really love to make their plays around the Baron buff, but that's an aggressive trade.
And IG opting into the dragon is just crazy to me. They've got Consume and 2 smites. The Baron was always going to be quick with Jinx. Now they've got a Baroned up minion wave they prepped earlier, crashing onto this inner turret. And EDG is stacking advantages just in trade for the 4th dragon from IG. They're really going to have to pull out all the stops to pick up the 5th one in 5 minutes time. Or just seeding a Baron. It's just a crazy trade for me.
Yeah, side wave control's been excellent for EDG as well. Bottom wave still pushing. Top wave was pushing as well. And it looks like the mid's even pushing in as well. That was one of the nice things about the teleport that they forced from Zatai, is that he had to give up pushing on the bottom side, and their wave was already pushing back.
It was already pushing back, but IG could have just sat there and looked to force them off Baron, keep vision around the Baron, but they opted into the trade. That's the crazy thing. They didn't split their option. They didn't send one person to pick up the dragon, because of course Kakao could have soloed it and then just void rushed to a close turret. They committed all their members, secured the objective, but I mean, Baron for dragon seems like a pretty simple trade for me.
Yeah, I mean, look at this Baron Candyman is doing work with the Jinx especially. EDG not really short on aggressive siege options, especially with a powered up Jinx, but the Baron buff making it even easier as another tower goes down in mid as well. That's 6 turrets. All the outers and tier 2s now down for EDG.
The turret damage is high and the siege is decent because, of course, even though you're in the rocket form with reduced attack speed, you've got Blood Boil. You've got so much attack speed coming through from the Nunu that you're able to do so much sieging damage, and the poke, you can see, is huge.
Yeah, Jeff even getting in aggressively, wanting to hit champions, not so much the turret as Pawn. Going to work on the mid as well. Got a good amount of AP, so doing decent damage to that mid inhibitor turret. If someone tries to move between the turrets, Pawn can probably kill them over the wall, and EDG right now executing a wonderful 4-1 split push, nice and close to the enemy base.
They still have 40% of their Baron buff duration, so plenty of time to just wait for these waves to come in and poke, because they need to register a turret killer. They need to break the base, because poke trades don't work so well with these turrets regenning health.
Well, this isn't going to take too much longer. You have to think as EDG push in and get good hits every time they walk in. The wave clear not bad for ID, given that option, so impressive that they're able to keep these waves prepped out. But look at Pong getting more aggressive. Koro even rotates over just to get some more damage down. Will actually get good damage to the turret. Gets rendered actually, but has to be careful. But IG have to give up pressure on the bottom side. That gives EDG access to this bottom inhibitor. And IG just getting run around a very small section of their base, but a very effective push by EDG.
IG couldn't have known, but this is the last minion wave that will have the Baron buff. It will expire as this minion wave dies. EDG looking for the bonus. They know they're going to get the inhibitor. They take a pick as well, but none available.
Yeah, smart pressure from Pawn. Just force the one big initiator out away from your team. So even if you make a misstep and die, your team's probably guaranteed to pick up the inhib. That's exactly what EDG get out of it, and it's been a very weird first game once again in an IG series, but EDG find themselves now 5,000 gold ahead with IG's bottom half of their base completely broken in two.
And the masters of adaptation IG look like they're going to have to go back to the drawing board for game 2. They had a great understanding of the first 20 minutes, forced EDG into the only moves they could make, and then just started to seed map advantage, all off the back of this blind pick mid lane Azir getting smashed by Pawn. It's only 20 CS, but if you're comparing the amount of map pressure Pawn has had compared to Azir, it's night and day. Azir's been so conservative with his positioning. He's basically been under his inner turret for the last 20 minutes or so, it feels like, and it's allowed EDG to have the run of the map, rotate super smartly. They have the Nunu Jinx to just smash down turrets, and if you can get those aggressive wards down, show up in minigun form with a Nunu by your side as Jinx, turrets, they just not long for this world.
Yeah, and you can tell by all the turrets that EDG have gotten, it's been very effective in this later stage of the game. And I have to agree with just the aggression from IG. It seems like the first 10-15 minutes were playing nice and proactively, but then Pawn started to get more ahead, and it feels like as the other lanes neutralized, IG just had to give up more and more ground. And EDG, who were behind on us, is actually going to catch Pawn here maybe. Good stuns coming through. Massive ulti, but Pawn will distort away, trying to get out, but Rookie will finally claim revenge.
Get a pick, but still 1 minute 40 to the 5th Dragon, which you have to assume is what IG have invested so many resources into picking up. Not a lot of wave clear on EDG's side. It's risky wave clear with just the rocket launcher form from Jinx. That's their only option. IG, they need to start getting towards breaking the base in 35 seconds, and I just don't know if they can do it. Even Janna might use that Monsoon just to push a minion wave back.
Yeah, why not? He's going to shield the turret up as well, relatively defensively, but that turret will go down. Didn't have much health to begin with, so not super surprising as Rookie.
IG are going to pull all the stops to try and get a pick around this inhibitor turret.
Yeah, Rookie also setting up a turret as well. As Clearlove actually ultis just to zone them off, but they get the inhibitor turret. Kakao getting caught and taking a good chunk of damage, but Clearlove can't really get back around here, and IG slowly pressuring down the inhib, now well and truly on top of it. It'll take a little while longer than they'd like, but Pawn's still not here. They managed to get it.
The lack of wave clear is so apparent in this situation. Def looking for that first kill to potentially get excited. Pawn is respawn.
Oh,
look at this.
Coro ported. That was the problem. I wondered why Kakao would use his ulti, but the turret's going to go down. Def gets a kill on Tanar back in the mid lane, and Kakao's forced off the Nexus. Coro might just win the game here by himself. A very savvy teleport by the Hecarim. He just has to play around Rek'Sai for a little while longer, and Kakao can't kill him. The Frozen Heart Spirit Visage keeping him alive. Kitty's here as well as the devastating charge coming through. Now Rookie coming in as Coro ultis himself out. They actually do deny the Dragon. It's not back up yet, but the rest of EDG now on top of an exposed Nexus.
For this.
Yeah, they are going to try. Def has a decent amount of help. Pawn gets knocked back though as well. Coro back in on top of the base. Def just needs to get in there for a couple of hits. Goes for the kills instead. Coro though can't be broken, and EDG take away the first Nexus.
Coro does his best X-Peke with Hecarim of all champions. I was waiting for the Onslaught of Shadows over the actual Nexus just to do his best Riftwalk impression. But man, that was crazy. We didn't have the camera trained on Coro, but so smart. Notice the fact that they had multiple super minions pushing into their base, and Rookie and IG looked devastated because they had just found a way back in. Getting that pick onto Rookie, onto Pawn, sorry, looked like it'd be the opening to IG crawling themselves back into this game. But EDG, one savvy teleport later, they take the game.
Yeah, so smart as well for EDG. After Pawn gets picked off, to buy as much time as possible, had the super minions coming in. Eventually, Coro's able to find an opening. Kakao got back with his ultimate, but the tankier Rek'Sai can't kill the even tankier Hecarim at that stage of the game, and EDG pull out a win. They probably didn't need to go that all in to try and kill the Nexus, but it paid off wonderfully.
I mean, they won the game when they could. They won the game before IG could potentially have started to get back to that 5th Dragon. Remember, they were breaking the base, and they could have just kited back from the base, moved away from the base, and picked up the 5th Dragon on their retreat. Coro undid all of that with a very smart teleport, doing his best Trundle impersonation, as we've seen multiple Trundles try and backdoor objectives. Hecarim's a different one, but with the Trinity Force procs, very effective.
So what you're telling me is that the counter to 5th Dragon is win the game?
That seems to be the way.
That's basically what I got from that game.